that's really the end of what I wanted to say. And now what I'd like to do is invite Rob to come up and start a panel discussion here. And along with Rob, Mike Chemlewski from Triconics, Invensys Triconics, now Schneider Electric, or now part of Schneider Electric. The leading, market leading, or market share leading, anyway, supplier of safety instrumented systems on the planet. And also, Jim Lane, Dan Lane, I'm sorry, from Nexen, who very kindly has consented to discuss, but please remember that he has about an equivalent amount of experience in safety instrumented systems, many years of experience, but is not authorized to speak on behalf of Nexen due to the late invitation that he received, but is an expert in the area. So if we could start, maybe I'd ask Mike if you would just have a reaction to what Rob spoke about, anything that stuck out in particular in your mind, being a supplier of the product.
Well, I think Rob already mentioned that I reacted to this word worship safety, although I guess we've been accused of doing the same. I think Rob made some excellent points in that you do need to maintain the sanctity and the separation in any operational environment of the safety system, but that doesn't mean you can't provide for the efficiency and convenience of having an integrated control and safety infrastructure as well. So I think all plant operations can accomplish not only what Rob was talking about, but also, like I said, the efficiencies of an integrated control and safety infrastructure. So I don't disagree with what Rob said. I just would believe we take it a little further and a little better.
Dan, can you discuss your practices in terms of what your history has been and how that cultural difference is maintained in terms of your experience?
Yes. I agree with Rob. The safety system should be unique and separate from the basic process control system. However, in my experience, it's got to make sense. And the only time that you can get it to make sense is if you truly have the right people at the HAZOP. If you don't have the right people at the beginning looking at your process and making the decision on whether is this actually require a safety system. If you get to that point and you say, well, you look at the hazards, you look at the existing mitigations, and you come to the decision that really we don't need a safety system. But we can make our plant safe enough with a process control system. So then why would you spend the money to put it in if you don't need it? So really that's where it all starts. If you don't have the right people with the right knowledge doing your PHA or your HAZOP, you could end up with requirements that are driven to LOPA or driven to SIL determination. And that's when now you've got to start looking at a safety system. You have to start looking at the cost of that safety system and how are you going to implement. One of the things that my pet projects right now is actually looking at the SIL determination calculations that are used and translating that actually into process control. Like we look at reliability and availability and the safety of a safety system, but we don't use the same rigorous calculations to determine the reliability of just an ordinary basic control loop. And why? Why don't we do that? So that's where I'm at, and that's what I'm working on. Is yes, if you need an SIS system, keep it safe, keep it sacred, or have it sanctified, if you will, but make sure you need one.
I have a follow-up question on that. and really is more addressed to the end users, but I'm happy to have Mike chime in on it. From my external perspective, it seems like the organizations, the service organizations, and the internal organizations that pursue safety instrumented systems are siloed to a great degree from many organizations that do the basic process control. Rob, you talked about the one-man plant being kind of a risk, but a lot of times if you look at getting service from a supplier or an EPC or some special service organization, they're certified specialists in the area. And traditionally, a lot of the maintenance has been done separately. Is that a strength? Would that help in terms of maintaining this kind of culture to just keep things a little bit more siloed from an organizational standpoint? Obviously, you have certification and those kind of barriers to it. But is the siloed organization as strong as it has been, and is it likely to be an asset for that culture that you're talking about?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because the corporation I came from and the corporation I guess now I'm involved in, it's waiting for more clarification, I guess. But the corporation, that as I see it, there are certain things to me that you need as core competencies, and things like process control and safety systems are something that, to me, chemical facility our size would want in-house. I speak to the smaller plants because I've just seen some things, not necessarily with SIS, but with things that where maybe salespeople have sold some dubious things to people just because it's not their area of expertise. And I mean, hopefully, within our corporation, I talk about the one-man band, but I'm talking about small chemical, people that are not versed in everything. I'm just saying it's very hard for them to make educated decisions, and this is just the first step, I guess. Like I said, I don't think there's common mode failure, but what's the next step? And what's the next step? And what's the next step? I'm just saying, I just hope that as we keep going down, project costs, and I understand all that, and efficiencies and all that, but to me, when you talk about safety systems, you just need to put that aside, and whatever costs or whatever the resources are required, that's what needs to happen.
You guys have a reaction to that?
Well, I have to disagree with you. I mean, if I took that tract, my management would definitely find a way to find someone else to do my job. I need to balance cost, and I need to balance safety, and we're all forced into that situation today. It's no longer whatever it costs. It can't be that way anymore. Otherwise, we're no longer competitive. And if you, like in my industry that I work in right now, SAG-D, yes, we do have a small upgrader, but in the SAG-D world, you have to be lean, mean, and efficient. And if you don't need something, you can't put it in there. Because in order for us to make money, which is really the name of the game, is to make money, we need to be lean. So if we look at SAG-D and somebody has convinced us, maybe inadvertently, that we need a safety system when we don't, and we've put in a safety system and spent all that money, and then you turn around and it's like, well, we didn't really need a safety system for this process because there's nothing here that can ruin the environment or hurt people or whatever. You have to balance that. You have to balance the cost and the safety. So no, I can't go down that road. Sorry, man.
No worries. Mike, I kind of wonder if you wouldn't mind describing kind of the I mean, you have an organization that delivers a lot of services in the safety area, and can you talk about, and as I understand it, that is a largely separate organization from the organizations that deliver the process control engineering services and startup services and so on and so forth. Could you clarify that and kind of talk about how that works and how you support, or whether you support the kind of cultural distinction that Rob was talking about?
Well, Triconics, I think, we do have a safety culture. Quite frankly, I think if every engineer in the plant was a safety engineer, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, right? Safety is not something to be taken lightly. I agree you have to balance it with the business interest, right? You can't spend money where it's not warranted. But if it is warranted, in many cases it is, especially with some of the volatile processes that we control and we have to be able to shut down in a safe manner, then safety pays, right? Having it in place and on the right processes pays. And having the right people with the qualifications and again, that culture about what to do and how to do it in a proper manner is going to help ensure that you truly do have a safety system that is not misconfigured or improperly maintained. So we put a lot of emphasis on both the certification of the engineers that are doing the work up front, as well as the field service technicians and engineers who are there to help do the assessments and the updates and the upgrades after the fact once the systems are in the plant. So when we're talking about safety culture, I think it's very important if you're going to be a safety company and if you're going to have a safe operation in whatever kind of plant you're running.
So maybe I missed it, but how does that organization fit, or those certified safety engineers fit within an overall projects organization? Because everybody, it seems to me, kind of has, both on the end users and the suppliers, kind of a very large projects organization that can offer comprehensive services. Can you talk about how the organization fits together and what in practice maybe keeps the safety work distinct?
Well, we have centers of excellence where we have identified functional safety engineers who are certified and do that type of work on projects, the same as we have control engineers and SCADA engineers who do like work for that component of an integrated control and safety system, as an example, or just a standalone safety system. So again, it's important to have the people that have the qualifications and the training and maintain that so that they're available to do that specific work. And then we have an equal set of consultants and service engineers who are able to satisfy the needs after the systems are installed and running. So, but that doesn't mean they are at odds, if you will, with their comrades who are doing control or other vital work on a particular project. It's just a necessary skill set that we value within the company and always have.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to, at this point, open up the session to questions from the floor, and if there aren't any questions, I'm happy to ask more, but I think it'd be more interesting to engage people from the floor. So Larry, there's a question back there.
Sure.
Please identify yourself and ask your question.
This is Ashok Acharya, GE. A lot of the vendors, such as ourselves, and I know a lot of others, with the fact that you have to optimize the cost, do use, within the bounds of 61508 or 61511, do use what is called as shared I/O between the safety and non-safety. You didn't discuss that. Question to Rob or Harry. Did you look into it? About probably, you discussed about moving the data from the safety to the DCS, and that's pretty standard. What about sharing the I/O?
So address that to anybody who wants to pick it up.
I mean, our procedures or standards are we do not share I/O. We always, wired separately, to the safety system and a separate transmitter to the DCS. Only I can think, of course, you always have an exception. I know we have a couple older systems where we did some, it's 2 out of 3, and I think we bring all 3 to both and then vote the middle for control. But that's only on older systems. We build anything new now, we totally segregate them.
I mean, that's one way to go, definitely. But that's if you can take advantage of the shared I/O concept, that saves you a lot of dollars from wiring
The thing is,
dollars, but it's
and all that, and it still keeps you safe because it is still within 61508 and 511 bounds. So that's why I was asking.
yeah. I'm not sure I would agree that.
Feel
it
free
is.
to chime in. I think Dan has something to
it's
say.
not. It's not. If you do shared I/O, 61511 does not recommend doing that. 61508 definitely does not advise doing that. And if you do that, you enter into the calculation for your probability of failure on demand, the common cause. And when you look at how that number changes due to common cause, I would not, definitely not recommend doing that.
Mike, you have any comment on that?
No, I agree with him.
Okay, I would just make a clarification in terms of what I meant to say, if I'm not sure if I said it right. What I meant to say was that the technologies of these smart configurable IOs are going to make it into both basic process control systems and safety systems. Not to say they would be common products, but the technology is going to be both. If you look at the kind of projects that Sandy Vassar of ExxonMobil was talking about and saying we have, of our total I/O, the majority is going into a safety system, it stands to reason that those companies are going to push suppliers to enable the same kind of standardization of the I/O configuration for the safety systems that they have. Dan?
And I'm sure Sandy and ExxonMobil, when they made that choice, they're following the premise that if you do bring most of your I/O into a safety system, then everything in that loop has to be at the same or greater SIL level, and they've bitten the bullet and done that. But to think that you can bring a non-SIL rated instrument into a safety system or combine the I/O without having impact, you're fooling yourself.
You're right. That's not what I meant. I meant from the safety side to the non-safety side. That's really the key point. So.
Okay,
you're stressing the same point. Thanks.
There's some other questions from the floor, looking around. I'm sorry, there's one right here? Oh, okay, just hold on, we'll get to you in just a second. Go ahead. Please identify yourself and ask your question.
Okay, I'm not the mystery guest. My name is Michiel Thijsling. I'm a process automation leader for Dow Chemical in Houston. The title intrigued me a little bit, Integrated Control and Safety Systems. And everything I heard is separate them functionally. And so can you explain the title, or what do you mean with the definition integrated? Or what does the panel think about integrated? Does it mean in the same building, in the same site? Or can it be in the same control system? Because this kind of, it puzzled me a little bit. Because
well, I can answer that in that I didn't pick the title. I was asked to present, and when they asked me, it was like, I can tell you, we hardly do any integration whatsoever. And they said, well, what we really want is a customer perspective of what you do. And so that was my presentation. I guess I actually brought up to them that we don't do a lot of integration, and I sort of bristle at the word integration when it comes to SIS. And so I guess I'm just.
I'll take the rap for that.
Yeah, there's the.
It is a term in the marketplace, certainly from the perspective of many projects. Both of these systems are coordinated and integrated into a project schedule and project deliverables and project designs. The degree to which they are integrated is kind of is obviously a matter of contention and concern, and also and yet at certainly at a kind of project level, it's imperative for these systems to be delivered with in a more integrated manner. Is there a question here? Oh, there's a follow-up. Go right ahead, please.
From what I heard from the gentleman's matter of compliance, not a matter of attention, which would cause you to keep the safety system separate from the process. I don't want to put words in any supplier's mouth, but yet from an operational standpoint, there are certainly values in I don't want to say unifying, but integrating things like device management and systems management, so that both systems approach that kind of vision that maybe archaic that Rob talked about having a single pane of glass, but nevertheless having a common store that represents issues with both systems, whether they're maintained separately or integrated. Did you have a follow-up question, please?
No, maybe follow-up comment. I only work for 25 years in automation, so relatively short period of the total lifespan of the industry. I worked for Dow, and since day one I worked for Dow, we had really integrated SYS systems with BPCS. It's in the same, they go to the same cabinet, the same control system. We separate them, in the programming language, also with ABB that we do right now. So I understand some of the concerns that the panel brought up. I think I see those concerns. The question, there are some benefits as well in integrating the two systems. It's like having two captains on one ship. That won't work sometimes. One takes the action, and you, as an operator, you see sometimes it's difficult to understand what really happened. What came first, to trip the plant. So for me, the integration has a big positive impact if you really do it well. So you have everything from one control system, one aspect system, to control your plants, because it's easier for failure detection, what came first, what went second, etc. On the backside, yeah, I agree with you. There are some concerns that you have to mitigate or manage along the way, because all the things that you explained about validation and auditing, all those things clearly need to be there. But I think it can be done safely. But there are some thinking to do about that.
There's another question over here.
I'm Sandy Chopala from Dolphin Energy, UAE. First, I'd like to comment on that topic. Actually, we call it ICSS in our facility, what we have implemented. As I said, one is the schedule point of view, other one is main automation contractor point of view, because these are definitely very, very, as I said, the safety system is very, very critical in the plant, and if it is just left like that, like any other UCP later on, if you are trying to integrate into a PCS or a DCS system, it's very, very difficult. We can't fix things at site, and definitely it cannot comply with IEC standards, basically 61508 and 61511. So that's why I believe we call it ICSS. That's, I just want to say that. But with respect to, yes, we have to have single window, at the same time have the kind of isolation that is needed. So that means definitely we need to go for the interface. There is no doubt about it at all. And maybe the common engineering from DCS, which may not be permitted, I think, even by IEC standards now. With respect to the connectivity, I think point-to-point or one-on-one connection, as I said, I think Triconix has a good safety bus which is certified. We can definitely connect multiple SAS and have one kind of interface with DCS. I don't think there is any problem with respect to that. But all that, I think the today's problem basically is with respect to the interface issue. And cyber security is another issue which has come up now, putting another hurdle with respect to this issue. OPC definitely has a lot of vulnerabilities, people keep telling, and the TCP/IP or the Modbus. And basically, I think the implementation, if it is done properly with respect to honoring the SIL and the standards and the certification, I believe interfacing is not an issue. I'd like to hear from Rob.
Anybody have some comments?
I guess technically, I realize that there is no problem with hanging multiple PCs on or safety systems on a safety bus, or we just, I guess, tend to be very conservative. You know, just the fear that someone, you know, even though the bus is secure, there's still the human failure and configuration, and if you just have one-on-one, there's just no way that you can inadvertently, say you're bypassing and somehow you got, I mean, you'd have to get device and register wrong, but a lot of times we have two reactors and they're identical and we copy everything. If you just do one-on-one, there's just no way it can ever mess up. And when it comes to, I guess I should be more cost conscious, but when it comes to safety systems, I don't know, and that's why we do it. It's foolproof. There's no way.
But I believe the plants are getting more and more complex. The IO is too huge, and we cannot get away from that. And otherwise, the systems and interfaces gets much more complex, and performance definitely it will affect with respect to either of the systems. So the complexity definitely calls for such kind of course, it should be reliable and meeting the standards, but we need to have that kind of an interface.
So what you're saying, Rob, is that small modularity, or as small a modularity as possible for the system, the SIS function is a virtue.
Well, it's very conservative. I'll say that. I mean, things like our normal PLCs, we got a private network. You know, we'll bring 5 or 6 of them. Into the DCS on with one interface. We'll allow remote configuration, but when SIS, I mean, the only thing we allow is that communication to DCS, and if you're going to go out and work on the thing, you're going out to it. You know, we don't even allow any remote configuration, anything.
Dan, you had
just the way we are.
Did you have?
Yeah, I think that when I apprenticed many years ago, and was on the tools in the field, I spent a lot of time there. And the most valuable thing that my journeyman told me was keep it simple, and of course he added an adjective to that. And I followed that principle most of my career, or I've tried to anyway. The point to point, I agree actually with Rod that you have to keep it simple. So you may complicate the heck out of your process control system and your data acquisition and your and all of, I mean, where we're going today is, it may as well be space science. But as far as your safety system is concerned, keep it simple. Why does it have to be complicated? It has one function. If things go south, it shuts you down. And it tells you that it shut you down. That's all it's got to do. It doesn't have to do anything else. Really? Does it? Does it have to do anything else? I'm asking you guys. Does your safety system have to do anything but bring you down safely or keep you in a safe state? And in order to do that, does it really have to be so complex?
So keep it simple.
So keep it simple.
And I might add also, I mean, the other thing about them is they're very static, generally speaking. I mean, unless you make a change to the process, generally speaking, you don't, it's not like you're the DCS where you're out there programming it every day. I mean, we go years without touching configuration on SIS because as long as the process stays the same and the HAZOP and the LOPA and everything was done correctly, it's a very static system that has one function in life, and that's
I mean, the whole
to
premise
shut you
is
down.
it's demand mode, right, Rob?
Yeah.
It's demand.
Go ahead,
The one
Mike.
thing I'd like to add, when it comes to integrated control and safety, there are different levels of that. I mean, I think one of the ways, perhaps that you were referring to in part, was how to communicate with the safety system and bring information of value into the operational view.
Mm-hmm.
And to keep it simple, because I always agree with that principle, you want to ensure that there's nothing your control system, by integrating it with safety, can do to the safety system itself to prevent it in any way, shape, or form from performing its primary function. So long as your communications, which can be, we can put it on the network, we can bring information in, so long as it's very secure from a cybersecurity perspective on the control network, and so long as it's effectively a passive mode of communications, which means the control system cannot in any way adversely affect what the SIS is doing, it is an improvement in the way you can operate the plant, and it helps improve the efficiencies. And you don't have to have hardwired signals in, like it sounds like Rob has done in his plant. You can pick up more information that could be of greater value over the network. You just have to be very simple, but also very secure in the way you bring it in. And that's what we've always approached it by.
Okay, thank you. There was another question out here. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rick Fraughton. I'm a product manager at United Electric Controls. My question is for Rob. Rob, you had made a statement that most incidents occur during startup and shutdown, and I'm just trying to get a sense for perhaps some of the reasons why. Is it the bypass procedure? Is there a human factor involvement there? Or is it a procedural issue that you see?